Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. A warm, very warm welcome to the May team WICCI. So today we have a reputed, seasoned speaker, Julie Tushingham, speaking about assertiveness. She is a accredited coach with a distinction by the Coaching Academy, has worked internationally in leadership positions for blue chip multinational companies with a background in PR and communications. She is an expert in reputation management. Julie helps her clients increase their opportunities, visibility, influence, and confidence so that they benefit from their responsible and authentic reputation. So, before we go into the show, I am proud to say I have known Julie for a while, and she has come on Meet Menaka talk show and a great speaker. And more importantly, she's very authentic in what she says, and because she really transfers what she believes in. So, that is a great quality of any speaker, and particularly as a coach, it comes through. So, we are honored to have Julie Tushingham today on the show to speak about assertiveness. So, this month is going to be all about disruptive leadership. Leadership, as you know, have changed over the decades from thinking that we have been blessed with it or it is in our genes to knowing anyone can become a leader. And do we then lead from the front, in the center, from behind? It has evolved so much. I think with the evolving comes change. And I think disruption is part of that change. So, hence, we chose the topic disruptive leadership for the month of May. A very warm welcome to you, Julie.
Thank you, Menika, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And just to introduce before we start, it's an honor to work with Angela and Kirubai on this team because I think we are so aligned and we speak what we think, which is a great thing, I think, in today's leadership. And there is transparency and authenticity, which I am really happy to be part of. So, welcome Angela and Kirubai as well as the core team members.
Thank you, Manika. Welcome to you too.
Thank you.
Welcome, Julie, and
Thank you.
So, before we start, I was thinking, why do we speak about assertiveness and why it is important? And I think, firstly, I think it gives a perspective of win-win situation when you are in negotiations or you're in with speaking with other people. And when you speak up for yourself and or for others, you become a bit more, stress-free and less anxious. And I think people who are assertive are great problem solvers too, because they can express themselves but in a positive way. And you value yourself, you put yourself in the center, you know that what you want, but you can say it in a calm, positive way. And also, I think because you are confidently telling people what you really want from life, what you really want from others. And I think you're also acknowledging what you can control from others' behaviors or thoughts, and also what you cannot take it. So I think it's really, really important for everyone to be open, to be for criticism and compliments, because as my friend Kirubai would often say to me, you have to learn to accept compliments more positively. And a couple more people have said the same thing. And then suddenly I realized, yes, I do have a problem, particularly as women and from certain cultures. I think we have been told time and time again we have to be humble, and humility is a part of strength. But I think sometimes we take it to the other extreme and we don't know how to handle compliments. So I think it's important to be able to handle criticism, but I think it is also important to know how to handle compliments and learning to say no. I think I wrote a big post about learning to say no was a big piece for me. So, I think that is why for me personally, assertiveness is important. But today we have an expert who speaks about assertiveness. So let us ask her. Julie, what does it mean to be assertive for you?
Ah, before I answer that question, I want to go back to something very interesting that you said about compliments, because you're right. Compliments for women, it's tough to accept a compliment. I know my mother, who's 87 and always looks well turned out and makes an effort. And I hope I'm like her when I'm her age. And I'll say, oh, mum, you look great today. That color really suits you. And she'll say, oh, this old thing, I've had it. As women, we are just so programmed to kind of, it's like a game of tennis, we'll hit it back over the net and say, oh, this is the, and really what we're doing is we're just batting that back and denying the person giving us the compliment the pleasure of giving it to us. We're actually negating what they say. I had a friend when I lived in Houston, Texas. I worked in the oil and gas industry for years, managing reputation. And she, such a lovely, lovely Southern lady. And whenever I complimented her, and she said, well, how lovely of you to notice. Thank you so much. And she was, by saying that, she was sort of complimenting me by saying, oh, aren't you lovely to even notice? And just graciously accepting the compliment. And I have tried to do that ever since, because the pleasure I received from her, by her just saying thank you, it was a win-win. And that's kind of what assertiveness is. Assertiveness is, as you touched on earlier, it's like taking the emotion out and saying, okay, how can I get my feelings across, still be authentic, but also make this more than just a he said, she said, but more of a discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. Because there's another coach who's a friend of mine, Rupak Sinha. He told me once as well. He said, "Menaka, just say thank you. That would be great." Because,
Yeah,
as you said, exactly, we throw it back to other people, and we don't realize we are undermining them actually by.
indeed. Yes, yeah, we are.
So
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it takes for people to be a bit brave to give somebody a compliment. The world is changing. Not everybody is as easy as they were giving them before. So yeah, if we can just say how kind, that gives them a compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you,
It's politically correct world, isn't it? I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, particularly for women, I would say in certain cultures and even in organizations, um, being assertiveness is interpreted as being aggressive. And I wouldn't say it's only for women, but as a woman, I know it's sometimes an issue in particularly certain cultures. However, it is a broader issue for many people. So, what would you say the difference between assertive and aggressive?
Mm. I think we can all identify with being in different situations where we notice aggressive very quickly. And that normally happens because there's a great deal of emotion surrounding it. There are behaviors, like the person is angry, or maybe they're communicating an angry, aggressive stance. They're closer to you, or their face changes. We instantly recognize aggressiveness because it sends a message to our brain like, oh, this could be an unsafe situation. So on the flip side of that, being assertive is creating almost a safe space to have an exchange of ideas. But before you achieve that safe space, you have to know yourself. You touched earlier on boundaries. You need to know what is okay for you and when you are uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it can simply be to say, actually, I don't agree with that, or I challenge that. Words like that in a very neutral tone that invite discussion. So assertiveness is about a win-win. And you can practice it with your friends. It doesn't have to be complicated, but know why you don't understand or agree, and be ready to back it up.
Sure.
Because so often we are not assertive because of we fear we don't want to be liked, or we won't be liked, or we're not ready with an answer, or we haven't got all the thoughts together about why we don't agree, but we just know it doesn't feel right.
Sure.
We want to speak up.
I think it's really interesting to hear you speak about that, because I think partly as a leadership trainer, I speak about being self-aware first thing, isn't it? If you don't know yourself, how are you then supposed to know what you stand for and what is important for you and what you don't agree? And then taking it forward, it is a bit of a negotiation skill, isn't it? To understand their perspective, to agree that, okay, I understand this is your stance and this is where I can see where you're coming from, or however you want to phrase it. But then
Exactly.
to be able to have the courage and to be able to say that, however, this is how I feel
Mm.
on here, this is where I come from, or it's actually not okay with me because of, one, two, three, however. So it's really important point you said there, Julie, because I think it's important in personal relationships, relationship between the team members, and also as a leader, how you stand for yourself and stand up for other people in the organization. So and also it's in a broader sense, isn't it? It's really helps people to do that. Thank you.
It's true. I think so many of us are challenged with how can I speak up or be assertive and still be liked, still be approachable? How do I leave that door open? And so I think for individuals it's difficult, and it's also, I work with organizations on helping them to be assertive and use that as a way to build their reputation. So it's challenging, but once you know what connects the dots
Sure.
and communicates that authenticity, um, you can be successful and do it well.
For me, I think I used to be the biggest people pleaser on the planet at one point, and the issue with that is you want to be liked. That's perhaps why you do it. However, long term, you don't even like yourself. Forget about somebody else like you, because I think we go about it the wrong way around, isn't it? First we have to like ourselves, and then we have to expect other people to like us. If we lead our life thinking how other people will like us, and I think we land up then leading to not liking ourselves who we are. And actually in my book I really wrote about it, and I wrote that I couldn't even recognize myself after a while, because slowly but surely, step by step, you're changing yourself without even realizing, and you become this person you don't even recognize any longer. So I think it's really important, isn't it, Julie, to be
Yes, because you end up holding yourself to someone else's standards or society's standards,
sure.
and really spending some time to reflect on what sits well with you and what doesn't, and then communicate to others what works and what doesn't is essential in building that assertiveness and in creating those boundaries. Angela was talking about it a little bit earlier about what she would and would not tolerate in people's behaviors, and I think that is so important, and it builds reputation,
Sure.
that of your organization and that of you as a person, because people know where they stand. When you're assertive, people know, oh, I know how Julie feels about that. I'll make sure I'm on time, or I'm open, or I'm really honest with her. It builds trust. And through that, it also builds influence. It attracts people to you. People want to work with people who show up as themselves, and they can build trust and have respect for. And assertiveness is one of the tools to doing that.
Yeah. People people are attracted to you more importantly, I think the right people get attracted to you, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. You're
Isn't it?
absolutely right.
Because
Yes.
they are in alignment with you, who you are. If
Mm,
you don't show who you are, you're more likely to attract people towards you who are not like you, and sooner or later you are going to, have issues there. So I
yeah.
think it's so important. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you spoke a bit about assertiveness and being aggressive, and how I spoke about how it's interpreted in certain cultures,
Mm.
particularly women. So what do you think? Why is this confusion there, and why is it misinterpreted either way?
Um, I think I have to ponder that one a bit because it can be cultural. I know when I was, when I was growing up in a traditional home, um, I wasn't encouraged to speak up for myself. I wasn't encouraged to talk about how I really felt about things, even though I was being mercilessly bullied at school. And my parents would say, stand up for yourself. Don't let that happen. Don't be a doormat. But I didn't have the tools to do it. Nobody could show me, well, how do I? It wasn't going to be, I was going to be sent to the headmaster's office if I punched the kid in the face who was giving me a hard time. I mean, that would not have been good at all. Nor is it something to fall back on today. But I wasn't shown. I didn't have the tools to be assertive in an appropriate way. I only connected with my emotion, and that was, to lash out with unkind words. And so I think it does go back to the win-win. I think it also goes back to knowing what's acceptable to you and what isn't. As we were talking about earlier, knowing yourself, and it's visceral. You'll think, oh, that doesn't sit right. And then you bridge to one of the tools is, so how do I say that?
Sure.
How do I express that? And it can be, I don't agree with it, or it can be, no, you are not treating me this way. This is unacceptable. And naming the behavior.
Sure. Thank you. It is very insightful to know a couple of things what you mentioned there, because one thing is, yes, I think, do you think, firstly, let me address this. When you bring emotions in, it's easy to slip into being aggressive very quickly. And you have to actively try not to bring the emotions in. I struggle with it, because particularly when it comes to topics you're passionate about, you believe in, and sometimes you get so passionate and your feelings come in, and that next thing you know is you're blurred, isn't it? However, the good thing is I am not the most assertive person, so I think I kind of try, that helps me sometimes to balance it, because I'm passionate, but then it stops me from going into the zone of being aggressive. But but I think it's, you people sometimes don't recognize is some people can be passive aggressive. When we think aggressiveness, we think people are shouting and screaming and, bringing the roof down. But it's not always the case. Some people can be very subtle, and people who the know-how, I guess, and they can be passive aggressive and actually undermine you without even you realizing sometimes. Do you think it's true, Julie?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've made many mistakes in my career. And it was normally when someone had not respected my values. And that produces this, emotion. Like, that's not right. And I remember there was while I was working for a corporation, and there was a young guy who I had done all the work, and it looked like he was going to be promoted and oversee my project. And before it was announced, I already felt that this was not right. But I was so consumed with it not being right that I couldn't think through the strategy of how to put it right. I knew inside that I deserved to lead that project. I knew the work I had done to back up why I should be leading that project. But because this guy was so confident and so out there and always the first to put his hand up for responsibility and so clear about what he could do and dodged questions that he didn't have the answer to, I was seen as not being competent to lead it. So I had to go away, and I had a mentor at that time, and I just vented. And she said, well, she said, first of all, do the things he's asking you to do, because I was being passive aggressive about saying, well, he wants that. I'm not doing that for him. He's not my boss. But I'd completely stepped away from one of my core values, which is integrity. So that didn't look good. So stepped back in that, started to deliver. And then I put my case together as to why I deserved to lead the project. I made the connections to the right people who could influence the decision, and I ended up leading the project. They could see why I'd been taken that aggressive mindset I was in, like, this is unfair. Got into assertive, got some input, refocused. And I have to say, I was proud of myself for doing it, because I just knew I was in the right, but I found a way to make it turn out okay, and okay for the company too. It was a win-win.
Well done. Bravo.
Thank you.
Perfect. That's the kind of stories we want to hear, right?
Oh, it was a multi-million-dollar project. I was the only woman leading it, which made me even more excited about it. And I had to do a lot of research to do it well, but when you step up and into something that you intrinsically know is the right fit for you, that is empowering.
Sure. Thank you so much, Judy. But the second piece I wanted to speak about from your previous thing is, when you came back home, your parents said to you, stand up for yourself, or something similar, right? But certainly in certain cultures, I know for sure, if I came back and told that when I was at school, I'm sure, particularly my mom, she loves me dearly, but I think it's a cultural thing. She would have never said, stand up for yourself. She would have said, oh, you have to understand, or let it go. Let it go. It's okay. Your turn will come another time, or something similar. I think it really kind of highlighted to me the differences in cultural upbringings, because I think, particularly I think as girls or women, or even sometimes for boys, I think, or men, sometimes in certain cultures you are told that the right way to handle it is to let go. The right way to handle is to accept what the other person wants, be it relationship, be it school, be it in college or at workplace. So I think, do you think this awareness and training and the toolkit has to start very young, and particularly for parents and teachers and trainers, they all need to know the importance of this and how these things are going to shape somebody up long term, Julie?
Yes, I do, and it's. I think it's very difficult for people when they're growing up in a culture that says, oh, just accept it, when you know inside that it's not okay with you.
Sure.
It's not okay with you. And we have to make tough decisions throughout our lives. Do I do this? Do I stand up for this? Or do I not? It's picking your battles.
Sure.
And I think for women in particular find it easier to connect with being assertive when we're advocating or standing up for someone else.
So
generally speaking, through the work that I've done and in the workplaces I've been in, it's easier for a woman to be protective of others, to help others. And what that does when we do that is it builds support. Other people see us helping someone else. And And when we know we're supported by others, it's easier for us to step into being assertive, isn't it?
Yeah.
We know we have that support. So I think you have to, it's that old term, you have to pick your battles, but being true and authentic to yourself is very, very important. We've lost your camera there, Menika. Are you okay?
Oh, I think she's picking up a parcel.
Oh, right. That happens, doesn't it? Yeah.
Julie,
Yeah.
while waiting for Menica, I would like to ask you something. It's just something that triggered. I think in the 21st century, women are more assertive compared to how we were back a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is my observation. So is that true? Sorry, Menica, just a little filler.
That's okay.
No, it's a very good question, Kirabe. Yeah, I think women have evolved. Thank you. I think we have evolved. What we were talking about with the women's movement and the women getting the vote at the beginning of the last century, for goodness sake, when before we'd been considered as property almost. I mean, that's why the father gives certainly in the Christian churches, why the father gives the daughter away. She was almost seen as property, and similar in many other cultures too. The whole,
even in Hindu cultures, parents give away.
yeah, and there's the whole dowry,
And their parents take us away.
which I have learned so much about through being on Meet Menica. I mean, what an eye-opener that is. Absolutely amazing. And I think women have become more independent, not just because we are earning income. We're also, some of us, earning enough to be financially independent of a partner. And that empowers us to make our own choices, which is fantastic. But to do that, you've got to be able to stand up for what you believe and what you think and what works for you. So yeah, I think women are growing in independence, and it's one of my passions is equal pay for equal work, and diversity, inclusion, and equity, another big passion of mine. But you can't have that without being ready to talk about what's important to you and what you believe. And that's where the assertiveness and building reputation comes in.
I mean, talking about it is the most important thing, isn't it? And that's why in Meet Menaka, I was about to say that actually, because we stick up for each other. We have a committee behind, and sometimes, if we believe the other person is right or not right, I think it's safe to say we have created that culture, and where we can speak up and say what we really want to, and we know there is support amongst some of them who believe in will voice out their opinion. Do you think, Julie? Because
yes,
you feel part of our committee, so
definitely I do. It's safe space, and I think we're now seeing this evolve in organizations too, and if they can do it authentically to build or leverage an existing culture that they have to really authentically communicate their values and engage with their employees and talk about the value that they bring. I'm sorry, I've got some flashing going on my screen right now. I don't know what's going on, but bear with me. I'm not having a party here all by myself. Yes, creating safe space to engage with people and listening. It's okay to speak, but I think also we need to listen to each other. Sure. Listen to when someone says this is not all right. Be curious about what doesn't sit right with them. Yeah, and also, don't negate what they're saying. We all have something important to share. I know a very old aunt of mine, whenever I said, oh, I'm just feeling sad today, I was 10, and sad to me was a puncture on my bicycle, so I couldn't go out and ride with my friends. But she'd say, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not sad. Of course you're. And it's that kind of denying how you feel. You have to listen.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's really important to know the background and why it's important. I know, Julie, you are a reputation coach for organizations and corporates. So, how does being assertive help an organization reputation?
Hmm. I think being assertive for an organization is being ready to take a stand on what your organization feels and thinks is the right thing for you. We're seeing that more at the moment with diversity, inclusion, and equity. We're seeing that a bit more too with climate change, climate emissions, particularly with oil and gas companies, for example. They are in transition at the moment to look for cleaner energy solutions so that they can remain relevant to their marketplace. And I think using them, I work mostly with energy companies. I think using that as an example, the time for a stick in the mud, non-progressive company is running out. To stay relevant to the marketplace and attract future employees and future investment and future partnerships, companies need to be assertive and communicate what they stand for in an authentic way. So they're not just saying it, but their actions back them up. Mm-hmm. And this is where the disconnect often happens. And there are often companies that don't think about what they're doing and how to communicate it out that will help them in the future. So I help companies to do that. And it is about stepping up and into a space, putting the right people out there to connect and communicate that message. But, and the big but, it has to be linked to authenticity.
Yeah.
If it's not, then crisis occurs. And so often companies do not think about reputation until there is a crisis. And I am all about helping organizations think about it before that occurs, so they're prepared.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. It was really interesting because it's important to live it, isn't it, as a person and as a leader or as an organization. And it not only makes your brand or makes you visible for who you really are in the outside world. I think as a leadership coach, I believe that it also increases employee engagement and employees experience positive experiences within the organization, because if you are showing up for what you believe in, who you really are, be able to express it in a positive way, I think then it all boils down to employees engagement and experiences at the end of the day, because you can sit in the leadership role and say anything you want to, but unless and until the entire organization and employees believe that that is the case, it's hard to get them to do the right actions. Do you think it's really important, Julie?
Oh, definitely. It definitely is. Your actions must support your words. And I think the culture of the top-down driven company, where there was a sort of a fear culture, particularly in energy, finance as well, and engineering, the more older traditional institutions in industry, if you like, have historically had that top-down approach. And I think that time of fear and leading by fear, and a leader just saying, you have to do this because I said so, I think that is changing. And I think we're hearing a lot about one of the important traits a leader needs is to be vulnerable. But how do you authentically be vulnerable? Are you vulnerable as a person? Where is your comfort level on that? And if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. So if you don't realize as an organization that your employees are your biggest ambassadors, then there's something wrong.
Sure.
Because they hold your organization accountable. They tell others why you're great to work for or not. And they are an organization's biggest asset.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. So, like you spoke about the good things about being assertive for organization. Are there any risks, and what are some of the risks for a company by being assertive?
I think to touch on what I mentioned about inauthenticity, could barely get the word out there, sorry. I think the disconnect occurs if you speak up for something that you cannot back up with evidence or with action. There needs to be a connection between what you say you believe and actually what you do. And if there isn't that connection, this is when crisis can occur. This is when reputation suffers. It's when the trust index is impacted, both with all your stakeholders. There's a trend right now, and it's been going on for some time. And as coaches, I think we all coach on confidence. Many of us coach on confidence, but we also talk about, don't be worried about what other people think. And I commented on this the other day on LinkedIn, and I said, it's wonderful, not to worry about what other people think. But I do have a caveat.
100%.
That caveat is that leaders should always be worried about what people think, because their leadership influences the external perception of the organization they represent. They are in a role of responsibility. Their behavior can impact share price. It can impact stakeholder engagement. It can impact employee motivation and engagement. It can impact whether people stay with the company or leave. And the figures for the loss of productivity and costs and impact on the organization are huge. I think it's something like 16 billion in the tech industry to rehire and retrain people after others have left. I mean, there are costs there associated with lack of engagement from employees. And so leaders, I feel very strongly, have to be mindful about their actions and their words, which will support an organization's reputation or cause it to be seriously questioned.
Sure, thank you. Because on that point, I think I read somewhere, I forgot exactly where it was from, but it takes almost 9 months when an employee leaves and you have to retrain the employee to get back to the same state. So, that is something to bear in mind as well, for sure.
You're absolutely right. And it is, for the employee, there's a lot of stress in the first 6 months to make a difference and come up to speed quickly. There's loss of productivity, the learning curve, it's natural. And there's time before the organization and the employee benefit from the sweet spot of an employee doing their best work.
Yeah, I mean, because when we teach leadership or as a leadership trainer, the most important piece is productivity. And, so this is really, really important to be able to be productive, isn't it? And so we don't sometimes think about it like that. So why do you think, and what holds really companies back from being assertive in that case?
I think not being able to think ahead. What do they want from it? What's the benefit? I think that holds them back. Not really understanding the benefit of it. Maybe, they're not sure about what they really stand for. And also, I have to say that the UK press is pretty tough on people. You see that a lot, and if you're going to go out there in the public space, you have to be ready to back it up. You've got to have it all mapped out, and be ready to stand for something, and also communicate why you're out there in the first place. I was contacted this morning regarding, potentially high-risk comment that someone might post. And I went back to this person and said, think about your motivation. What do you want from it? What do you, what do you want to get out of this? Again, it goes back to assertive and aggressive. Do you just want to deliver a poke in the eye, or do you want to make a point and make a change?
Sure. Thank you so much, Julie. I mean, let's open this up for everyone, really. As women, what holds women back from being assertive? Do you think? We have already touched, and I spoke about cultures and upbringing and expectations in the organization rule. I think I would like to open this up for everyone, for Kripa and Angela. But as an expert, what is your take on it first?
What holds women back from being assertive? My experience in working with clients is that what holds us back, and indeed what held me back, was fear of being liked. And I think that does hold us back quite a bit. As women, it's important for us to be liked. And sometimes in leadership, you can't be liked and be effective, particularly if you're promoted from within. It's a difficult, very difficult balance there. So it's getting that balance right. It's also getting to some level of being comfortable with not being liked by everybody. And also having the confidence and battling your imposter syndrome. Many of us have suffered from it, to speak up and step up, connect and influence. I talk about this quite a bit. And it's that holds us back. We know that our stuff. How many times have we all wished, oh God, I wish I'd just said that. I knew that. Sometimes if we're around a table in a meeting, we're thinking it, yeah, he should be asking me, or I feel this way about it, or I know that's wrong. And someone else says it. A lot of times it's a man. And they end up thinking he's the expert when you've got all the data and it could have been you.
I was thinking exactly that 2 minutes ago.
It's happened to me so many times. It still happens occasionally. I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but we're working on ourselves all the time, and we are.
I think there is also social norm and cultural expectations, because, I mean, do you think, like, when you put your hand up, like, mostly it's not you who is picked up sometimes in certain organizations and certain...
Oh, sure, but there are skills to actually hold the space. There are skills to make the space so that you break the conversation and give yourself the opportunity to speak. And when you do that, and when you become good at that, it takes practice, but it can be done. You own that moment.
So what would you say is that one skill you can do?
Aha. I'll share it with you. Here's the secret. Okay.
Secret sauce.
Yeah, but I shared it a little bit earlier too. If you don't agree or you challenge something, say it. Say it in a very positive but assertive way. Don't sit back and say, oh, I don't agree with that. Straighten your shoulders, sit back or stand up, be assertive, be present, come up to the table, watch the men around the room. This is what they do. Own your power, shoulders back, and say, actually, I hear you, but I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And say it loud enough. Men's voices are at different decibels. And women who are effective have learned that. And if you're in a round table with women, do the same thing, but speak up. And then that's your moment. You've opened the gap. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And here's why. Or I challenge that. I like it, but I don't agree with it. Or I hear what you're saying. These are the words. Put yourself forward. Be ready. And if it helps, give yourself a little nudge in the hip to remember to do that.
It's really interesting.
That space.
Can I just quickly ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm loving the flow, and thank you so much for the information. We have a comment here from our Deva Priya. She's the president of WICCI, and she said imposter syndrome just before you mentioned it. And I wonder I wonder if you can just make a couple of comments on, She also said the fear of being judged. Why is it so applicable, or is it so sensitive to women? The fear of how our image is being portrayed. And for the viewers, what is imposter syndrome?
How we are perceived, I think, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. Have you ever, oh, there goes the flashing light again. I really should have some music to go with this. But, imposter syndrome, have you ever felt like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be here. I'm in this meeting, I shouldn't be here. I'm not qualified. They're going to find out that I shouldn't be here, and someone's going to question me, or I'm going to say something. But it's that terrible discomfort. You know, I got this job because I was lucky. I had that throughout most of my career.
But don't we all say that? We all have said that at some point or the other.
Absolutely do. And it's ourselves working against ourselves.
But why is it applicable to women? Why does it happen to women?
I think it's a good question. In my experience, as women, we've been judged right from the start. You know, if it's not the media, we've all heard this, you know, if it's not having the perfect body, having the perfect hair, you know, here's what they're wearing on the high street. And if you're not wearing that, then you shouldn't even turn up. You know, this is the haircut of the year. This is the color of the year. I mean, for goodness sake, Pantone, the company that makes paint colors, or is now an authority on what the color of the year is. That's a massive PR shift for them when all they were connected with was advertising in paint colors used in imagery.
Sure.
About that, they're now an authority on the color we as women should be wearing for the year. By the way, I don't know what it is this year.
This is yellow, by the way.
Is it? Oh, well, I'm obviously
Yellow and gray.
showed up today.
Yellow and gray.
I guess where I'm going. And we judge ourselves. It's the way we've been programmed from young, you know, whether you're not beautiful enough to get married, or you're not smart enough to talk about this, or you know, nobody's going to like you because for me, it was my nose was too big. It's bigger than my face. I mean, all of these things.
For me, it's too big. I have the wrong accent, and I studied English too late.
I know. I've had the wrong accent for years. But we all get in that situation. What I do, my secret weapon is I always look at the source. I always look at the source of where the judgment is coming from. You know, if it's like, I'll be kind, but somebody was trying to give me some fashion advice on why something I was wearing didn't look good on me.
No.
What happens? She was judging, you know, and judging is easy to do when you're not comfortable with yourself.
Yes.
I looked at the source, I looked at how she was judged, and I made a decision myself. She obviously got dressed in the dark, so her opinion doesn't count. I'm not going to let that have an impact on me, you know? So it's just switching it around.
Don't you think so? It normally comes from a place of insecurity.
Of course. Of course. Let's transfer that insecurity to somebody else. If she feels insecure, then I'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Julie, if I may add another point, it's, you know, why are we constantly looking to balance and constantly looking to not offend? What is it? Why not just have the normal etiquette that we once did and just respect people for who they are? But when it comes to business, there is business etiquette. If people are lacking so much, train them. Why is it so difficult? My second question to you is, how would you deal with the person on the other side of the scale? Because what if the person is too confident, but you know that that person means well, which is one of the things that I have experienced throughout my life. I have constantly been told the three things that are attached to me is my hair, my smile, and my confidence. And I just don't, I can understand the hair and the smile. Okay, it doesn't look too good today, but I don't care.
I love your hair. I have serious hair envy.
What is it if you've been, you know, tarnished with having too much confidence. And it's got nothing to do with my color, my background, or nothing. I am even too confident for the Western girl. How do you deal with that?
Well, what
Just before Julie starts, I think it's a social construct, really, because I remember someone told me once, a few years back, I used to never wear makeup at that point, except lipstick. Lipstick is something, it was part of me for a long, long period of time. But, being a woman, how can you not want to wear, makeup? Because that's what makes the woman a woman almost. And I just turned around and said, well, you're looking at one who is a woman but don't necessarily need makeup. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about getting dressed up and dolled up for the fun, when I think I would enjoy that. But Kiribe and Julie have seen me in all sort of environments and different attires, and I am the kind of person, sometimes I would just not even wear my moisturizer. I'm happy to just dress up and just go out if I want to go out. And I think exactly to the point what you said, Angela, that should be okay. If that person feels comfortable, I don't wear high heels. Firstly, I have backaches, but I was also brought up from a young age by my father saying that it's bad for your back, don't wear heels. So it's kind of stuck into mine. And then very young, I went and broke my patella. So, everything kind of worked against me to wear heels. I don't, but there are so many norms people expect. If you are confident, if you're a leader, if you are fashionable, if you are trendy, then you have to wear the 6-inch heel and, wear tons and tons of kilos of makeup and doll. But it's not for everyone.
I love my walking boots. I'm fine with that. I don't care about anybody else.
Sorry for diverting, but I had to say that.
I think it's about being comfortable with yourself. Absolutely. But to your point, Angela, not everyone is going to be confident and comfortable with all of us, with our complete self showing up all the time, right? And I think your question was, and I love high heels. I used to wear high heels, makeup, used to get dressed in my suits. I worked in a very corporate environment. It was like my armor.
Hats off to you.
4:30 a.m. I was up every morning putting my armor on.
Putting on your work paint.
Yeah, my suit. I mean, I was, my heels were high. I'll tell you the story one day about using a meeting table as a hurdle, which I jumped in high heels. But anyway, it's a whole other thing. But I did not feel that I was totally showing up if I was not dressed for it.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's part of my personal brand. A lot of people get confused between personal brand and reputation, but so yeah, it's kind of like knowing your audience. And I think, Angela, your question was about the other side. What if you're on?
Because you see, I've always, I'll give you a recent example. I love the Queen, and I love, the late Prince Philip, who passed away sadly. And, I just thought, there are beautiful examples of perfect partnership. And you see all this media about, oh, it is a man who wore the trouser, really. It's like, excuse me, our Queen is doing a grand job on her own. Hello. So this is like, it's almost like, how is the Queen going to survive? I mean, her rock is gone. We have more than one rock. Yeah, she, I'm a great follower of Prince Philip, and I think he's just done a grand job, and I love his leadership. I believe in silence leadership. So he is like, without knowing, he was my mentor, because it isn't always about leading from the front. But I am so, I get tired of being told about, if a woman is too confident, then it is related to either of a different sexuality. You're stereotyped, you are not your regular woman, or there is, she is that way inclined or that way inclined. Nothing bothers me, because I just think I am, I'm a tough cookie. But I love to know your sort of insight into, can your overconfidence be your destruction at times? And if so, how can you know, sometimes you don't want to tone down. I don't feel like toning down today.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And I think it depends on your audience.
Yeah.
Know who you're talking to.
Yes.
Know what you want from it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a time to be all out. I always remember when my daughter was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I was going out with my girlfriends. And we were going out to this fantastic bar in Houston. That was a really edgy, happening place. And it was fabulous. And my husband was staying home with my daughter, and they were going to have a quiet night in with pizza and Disney. And I was going out with the girls. And I got dressed, and I came downstairs, and my daughter looked at me and she said, "That's not you. That you don't wear those clothes, Mum." I mean, I wasn't dressed inappropriately, but I was going out, you know, and I'm still reasonably me and conservative, but I was going out for a great time with girls. And her point was, she didn't see, that wasn't the mummy mold, you know. Where did mum go? Your hair's a bit different. My God, you've got a leather jacket on. What are you thinking of? You know. And I was going out because I was going to be in that environment.
Yeah.
So, and it felt good to be that person and just be
out with the girls.
Indeed, but just
Hot
be
chick.
me, not a mum, you know,
Yeah.
not a wife, or just go out and be with you.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on where you are at that time.
Yeah.
And I think also it's key, Angela, to be self-aware. Be aware. Wow, I am confident.
Yeah.
There may be others who aren't that way. Let's test the water a bit. Let's see, does this work? Or I know I have to dial it back. You're okay with it because it's who you are.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, to be effective.
Yes.
Be effective if that's your goal.
Yeah.
Dial it back. Test the water.
Yeah.
Throw a few things out there. You know.
Yeah. That's the only thing I think I lacked was what is norm to me. It wasn't norm to other people, and it took me years. Why do I always get attached to that? So that's a really good point. Thank you so much. I'll pass it to, I think, Kira. Lovely question. Thank you so much, Julie.
I think we are almost about to wrap up, but before that, yes, let's Kirbe ask.
Not a question to Julie, but it's an observation. My observation is, Julie, I think people love to project on others what they don't have.
Absolutely.
And that's key, if when you start doing it to someone else, then you have to step back and examine, hey, is this something that is real, or are you projecting? And in all this, a lot of envy takes place. I know you always talk about women helping women, and that's what WICCI is all about. India, UK business women helping one another. But when there is envy and jealousy and not being able to help one another in general, that's where the projection starts. So being assertive, correct me if I'm wrong, being assertive is being able to say also, raising your hands, what Menaka always says, I don't know, can you help me?
Exactly.
Can we learn from each other?
Yeah. And I think,
highlighting and complimenting one another. I always stand on this. Let's not compete.
Yeah.
Collaborate and compliment. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my
And
2 cents of my worth.
no, it's always well spent and always well invested, your 2 cents. So thank you. You're absolutely right. And I'm so passionate about women helping other women to succeed, because if we don't do that, we can never close the gender diversity gap in leadership. There is a massive gap right now. And from the research that I have been doing, there's still that, well, I'm the only woman, and I'm not helping other women because it may take away from me. We cannot function effectively in that space.
But don't you think so? That also comes from a place of insecurity, really.
Yeah, it does, and jealousy. There's lots going on there. But by helping others, we lift ourselves. And
Sure.
when you are operating from that abundant mindset, you will be effective.
Sure. Thank you so much, Julie. It was a pleasure as ever having you as a speaker, and you enlightened us and the audience all about being assertive and why it's important and how you can be assertive and why the organizations have to take this on as a mission, and women a skill to learn for sure. So thank you so much for that, and thank you, Angela and Kirby, for enlightening us, even further, expanding the knowledge of assertiveness. It's almost time to wrap up. So this month of May is all about disruptive leadership. Next week we will be speaking about the diversity and inclusion, and it will be the same time, same place, Thursday, 1 o'clock. We normally do a teaser on Mondays. That's become kind of a routine now, so we will perhaps keep doing that. Thank you so much for joining us for WICCI May team and supporting us, asking questions, encouraging, and thank you, Devapriya, for the support as ever and also asking the question. So I think it is almost time to say goodbye. Until we see you next time, same place, same time. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.